Hey guys, so for today's video, I'm going to be doing some nails inspired by poison dart frogs. I've been seeing a lot of people doing this on like Instagram and TikTok, and I've seen a lot of pictures on Pinterest as well. So I just went on Pinterest and typed in poison dart frog to get some inspo, and that picture that I showed at the beginning are like the frogs that I'm basing my designs off of. So I just pulled out a bunch of different colors that match to the frogs that I wanted to do on my nails. I'm using a bunch of different ball pit colors, Nails by Dev color, a Nail Reserve, and a Madam Glam color. I do have discount codes for both Madam Glam and Nail Reserve. I do have an affiliate link for Nail Reserve, so if you do purchase through that link, which I do have in the description down below, I think I can earn like some sort of commission or something. I will say though that this color that I'm using, Sail Away from Nail Reserve, is no longer on their website. So you can't get that color, but there are a bunch of other colors from Nail Reserve that you can get. But I did just want to mention the discount code and the fact that you can't get that blue color anymore from Nail Reserve real quick. But for this first nail that I'm going to be painting, I needed to kind of mix up a color because I didn't have like the right color that was of this frog. So I'm mixing together, I think it's Royal Mint and Undead from Ball Pit. I needed kind of like a minty kind of green color for this frog. And I thought mixing these two colors together was going to give me the color that I needed, and it kind of did. It just was lacking a little bit of the green pigment that I needed. So later on, and I do show this later on in the video, I did mix in some of that neon green called Best Buds from Ball Pit into it to make it a little more green. It still wasn't exact how in the picture of the frog was, but it was closer than what I'm getting here. So I just went ahead and applied that after I mixed it all together. It does look very streaky because I am applying it with like this separate brush, and it's not with one out of the bottle, and it's going on super thin. But anyhow, I did do one coat of it just like that, and then after I mixed in the other color, I did like 2 more coats of it on there just to get full pigmentation of that. And then for this nail, I'm using that orange color from Madam Glam. I forgot what it's called. I did 2 coats of that orange on there, cured each coat for 60 seconds. Now for this nail, I'm using that Sail Away color from Nail Reserve. Again, I did 2 coats of this, and I cured each coat for 60 seconds. Now I'm painting this nail that neon green color. Again, doing 2 coats and curing each coat for 60 seconds. And then for the last nail here, I'm using, I think this is Royal Mint from Ball Pit, and it looks very similar to that first color I did, but if you were to see them right next to each other, you could tell that this Royal Mint is a whole lot lighter than that. But again, 2 coats of this, cured each coat for 60 seconds, and like I said earlier, I did end up mixing some of that neon green into that color that I mixed up earlier to give it more of that green color, because like I said, it is like a minty green color of this frog, but it's way more green than I was thinking it was. Like, when I was mixing it on my palette, like, it was looking very similar and looking fine, but then once I got it on the nail, it was kind of like the green wasn't showing through as much anymore. But adding this second coat, and then I did do a third coat on top of it because they did go on super thin, and I wanted to make sure the entire nail was completely covered and opaque. Adding these second and third layers on with this other color that I mixed up that has the more green in it, it definitely made it a lot closer to the color that's in the picture, but it wasn't exact. But honestly, like, it's okay. It doesn't have to be exactly the same color, even though, like, I was trying to get it exact, but like I said, it doesn't have to be exact. So after I got all of the bases on, I'm going in and doing like any kind of secondary colors that may be on the frogs. So for the orange one, I'm taking a neon red color that honestly on camera it looks very similar, and it almost looks like I'm doing another orange on top of orange. And honestly in person it is a very orange based red because it is so neon. But I just put a little strip of that down the middle, and now I'm using this ombre brush from Ball Pit, and I'm just kind of doing almost like an aura nail and just kind of blending that red out to create like this orange blobby spot that was like on the frog as well. It was like on their back, it was like this big orange blob or red blob on their back. I do show the picture again at the end so you can see, so you'll know what I'm talking about. You can see what I was trying to do, but I was just blending out the edges again to try and create kind of like an aura almost, and it wasn't perfect, but thankfully because this orange and this neon red are like so similar in color, you couldn't really tell that the blend wasn't all that great. So to do the blend, I'm just taking like the very tip of this brush and just kind of tapping and pulling out. I do wipe it off every now and then because it does build up polish on the brush, and that just pulls out more polish than you want, and it kind of messes up your blend a little bit. And once I got that how I wanted it, I did go ahead and cure that for 60 seconds. Now on this blue nail here, I'm just taking a darker blue. I want to say that's Mermaid Lagoon from Ball Pit. But I'm just taking my 9mm liner brush from Ball Pit that I just shown and just drawing on some like squiggly lines. They really didn't have to be super straight or like perfect or anything. I just kind of really quickly drew on these lines, and then taking the other end of that 9mm brush, which this technically is like a cleanup brush, but you can also use it for like blending, like if you're blending out small areas, like I'm doing here, or if you're doing like character art or portraits or something, like it works for that as well. Instead of using the ombre brush, which is a lot bigger and covers more space, I just wanted to blend out these lines a little bit because that's how they kind of looked to me on this frog. They kind of like spread out, and like they weren't, you know, just solid straight lines on the frog. So I blended them out a little bit. I did add a little triangle up at like the cuticle area of the nail and did the same thing there. And then after I blended it out, I felt like on the frog itself, like it looked like there was kind of a more defined line, and then like the edges were just kind of like diffused and like blended out, and I felt like I maybe blended my lines out a little bit too much. So I did just go back in and do another line in the middle of these puffy blended out bits that I did, to kind of give that like more defined line that is like has like softer edges to it, if that makes sense. It'll probably make more sense when you see me doing it. Sometimes I feel like when I'm trying to explain stuff, like it doesn't really make sense, but when you see it being done, it hopefully makes more sense. But anyhow, like I said, I did this little triangle bit the same way I did those two lines down there. Again, not really trying to make it like a perfect triangle, but also not really wanting it to be super messy, you know? Like, I wasn't trying to be perfect, but I also wasn't trying to be super messy with it. So I was kind of being a little more controlled with how squiggly and messy it was looking without being like super controlled, if that makes sense. But after I got this bit done, I did go ahead and cure for 60 seconds. And I do just want to mention that usually when I do nail art, I do say to wipe off the sticky layer off of the nail before going in and doing any nail art, because the sticky layer does tend to spread your lines out a little bit. But because of what I was doing, and I was doing all these different like kind of like ombres and like auras and stuff like that, it really didn't matter, and it kind of in a way helped a little bit to create those blends and to like spread it out a little bit. So I didn't wipe any of the sticky layers off of any of these nails before going in and doing any of this stuff on top of them. But like I said, usually I do recommend doing that, but in this case it really didn't matter because I was going in and like spreading them out and fluffing them out a bit. So I didn't really feel it was necessary to wipe that off. Now on this green one, I'm taking Undead, and I'm going to do an ombre with this. So I'm just applying a little bit down towards the free edge of the nail. I didn't want to add too much because I didn't want this ombre to come up super high on the nail, but I also didn't want it to be super low either. So I just started out with this little bit here. If I needed to add more, then I could add more, but I didn't need to because it ended up working out and looking how I wanted it to look. And just like with the aura nail, I'm just kind of taking the edges, or like the edge of the brush, and just kind of tapping it into the gel polish and then just like dragging it up a little bit. Again, I will wipe the brush off every now and then because, as you can see here, it does get a buildup of polish on the brush, and that pulls all that polish up and kind of you know, adds polish where you don't really want it, and it like distorts your blend there and maybe make it come up a little higher than you want it to. And then once I got it to where I wanted it to be, I just focused more on the edge of the ombre where that blue and that green were meeting, and just really focused on trying to really blend out that blue and make it so it really like melted into that green real nicely. And just again, I'm doing like this tapping and pulling motion to try and get it to blend out really well. And once I got it how I wanted, I did go ahead and cure for 60 seconds. I will say I'm not the best with ombres with an ombre brush. I've just recently started trying to do them like this, and I don't necessarily know if like I'm doing it right or doing it the best way possible. I'm just kind of copying like what I've seen other people do. I know Maddox on Instagram, or Ball Pit, she has done a tutorial on how to do ombres, and she does really well ombres. So if you need help doing ombres with an ombre brush, I recommend going to her Instagram. I don't know if it's like her Instagram or on her like shop page Instagram. I'm pretty sure it's on her Instagram, where she does a little tutorial on how to do an ombre. So I definitely recommend going over there and checking that out if you want to try and figure out how to do ombres better. But then on that last nail, I just took that neon orange and did kind of like a squiggly triangle. Again, not trying to be perfect with the triangle and make it perfectly straight, but also not trying to make it super messy. Controlled mess is what I like to say. So, you know, just kind of doing these little squiggly triangles. I only did one coat of that, and then I cured it for 60 seconds. And now I'm just going in with the black from Ball Pit and a dotting tool and doing all of the little like black spots and stripes and stuff. I felt like for the stripes and even the spots, doing this with a dotting tool would be a little bit better, because I feel like whenever I use a nail art brush, I try, like if I'm doing spots or stripes or anything, I try a little too hard to make it look kind of like organic shapes, or like try too hard to make it super perfect or whatever. Whereas I feel like with the dotting tool, it almost kind of has like a mind of its own. Like you press it down and it kind of just spreads however it spreads. So I feel like doing these lines and these spots to get them more like organic and kind of like free form, that's why I chose to use the dotting tool. But you can use a liner brush if you wanted to, or like a nail art brush if you wanted to create these, like if that's more comfortable for you. But like I said, for me personally, when it comes to like doing more like organic type of shapes, or shapes that like these spots here, they have to be, or they don't have to be, but like on the frogs, they were all different kinds of like shapes and sizes and stuff, and I just feel like that's easier for me to do with a dotting tool, to make it kind of random and organic versus like a specific pattern and a specific shape and size and have it look a different way or a specific way. Whereas with the nail art brush, I would have been like, I would have spent so long like trying to perfect it to make it look super organic, and then like it wouldn't have really looked quite right. I mean, it might have looked fine, but like in my mind it wouldn't have looked right, and I would have been sitting there like, why doesn't this look right? So to make it easier for me, just went in with the dotting tool and did that. And so I'm just adding on, you know, the random little dots and spots and little random stripes and stuff that are on the frogs' bodies. Trying to make them look as closely as possible to the pictures that I was looking at. Obviously they don't look exact like it, but I was trying to at least make the size and the way the dots and stripes look to look similar to what was on these pictures. They may not be the same placement or you know, the same exact way, but at least they look somewhat similar. So just went through and did that. I wasn't curing any of them in between each nail. I waited to do a full 60-second cure at the end. And again, I didn't wipe off the sticky layer off of any of these nails, because like I said earlier, I felt like it was kind of helping with this particular design to not wipe that sticky layer off and just let it kind of spread out a little bit if it was going to spread out a little bit. And it just like really helped with that like natural kind of look and like pattern for these frogs. So yeah, just went through, did all the different patterns and spots and stripes and whatever, cured for 60 seconds at the very end. And I'm just gonna let this finish playing out because I really don't have much else to say about this process right now. this nail here, when I started adding the spots, it was reminding me of, what's her name? From the Flintstones, the baby. Pebbles. It was reminding me of like her little dress shirt thing that she wore, because I think hers is just plain green, if I'm remembering correctly. It might have been blue and green, kind of ombre situation as well. I don't know. But honestly, once I added the spots, I'm like, this is definitely giving Flintstones. And then later on, after I was feeling like this was looking like Flintstones, looking back on that orange one, I'm also like, that kind of looks like Fred's thing that he was wearing, with the orange and then like the little black spots. I'm like, these could almost borderline be a Flintstone nails, like if I just did those two. But yeah, I don't know, I just thought it was kind of funny. Also, when seeing other people do these like poison dart frog nails or like frog nails, I've been seeing them like do it 3D, and I thought about for half a second doing them 3D, but then I decided I really didn't want to do 3D because I was going to take extra time and I didn't really feel like doing it. So I did just leave them 2D, but I do think they look super cool 3D. I feel like they look more like the frogs when they are 3D. Like, if you know that these are designed based off of poison dart frogs, then you can tell that, yeah, those are like, they look like poison dart frog designs or like patterns. But if you were to just look at the nails and not know, I feel like it's a little difficult, and you're just kind of looking at it like, okay, they're random colors and they have random black spots on them, like whatever. I feel like if I were to have done the 3D, they would have looked a little more frog-like, and you probably would have got that like frog feeling of them. But like I said, I didn't feel like doing it. Also, I kind of wanted to show what they would look like not being 3D for those that don't like 3D nails or like the texture nails or anything like that, or if you are a beginner and you are a little intimidated by 3D nails, like, you can do 3D designs but make them 2D, if you get what I'm trying to say there. You don't have to do something 3D, like all the 3D fruits and stuff. You could just paint those on, and like for this frog design, you can just paint it on. But anyhow, after I got all the spots on, I'm just taking my shiny top coat from LGN and applying that to all of the nails, and then I cure it for 60 seconds. I feel like you could do this set matte. It's not necessarily going to give that like slimy frog look, I feel like. But I also feel like these would look pretty cool matte as well. Like, this is just one of those designs that I feel like you could do either way. I mean, if you're going for the frog feel, I would say do shiny. But if you just like the pattern of the nails and you're not really trying to give that frog feel, then you could do matte. And it would still look really cool, but like I said, if you're going for like the frog effect of it, I definitely recommend shiny, so it definitely gives that like slimy kind of frog look to the nails. this is the finished result. I think they came out really well. I really like how they look. Like I said, if you were to just look at them without knowing that they were supposed to be based off of frogs, you probably really can't tell. They just kind of look like random nails with like random spots on them. Oh, here I am showing you like the comparison between the frog that I was doing and the nail. Some of them the colors are off, like I said, but honestly it's really not that big of a deal. But I do think I did a pretty good job like mimicking the colors and like the patterns and everything. I'm really happy with how these came out. I think they look super cool. I think my favorite nail would have to be that blue and green ombre one, but also the orange and red ombre one is really cool. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't feeling this blue one until I got the black like spots and stuff on, but even after getting the black spots on, it's really not my favorite out of all of them. It's not bad, but I don't know, I feel like maybe I could have done a little bit better execution wise, trying to get it to kind of mimic the frog. But overall, I'm super happy with these nails. I'm super happy with like my this one with the orange and red like aura blend, as well as that blue and green ombre. I can definitely see a lot of improvement in, oh, here's that one. Like I said, I didn't put enough green in it to give it that like, it's kind of like a neon mint green color almost. So like I said, I didn't add enough green, but you know, it was good enough. But anyhow, I'm definitely seeing a lot of improvement here with my ombres and like my blending abilities when it comes to, you know, blending out stuff. I've only used an ombre brush a few times, like a handful of times, and from the first time that I've used it to now, I can definitely see a huge improvement in me creating these ombres. Also, I will say that the colors that I used for these ombres are really easy to blend together, because they are kind of similar when it comes to like their like undertones and everything, which makes it a lot easier to blend them together. So I do want to practice doing some like harder kind of blends, like black into something, or like just darker colors in general, because those tend to be a little more difficult to blend together. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.